Design Management event series here at the Lausanne University of Applied Sciences and Arts. It's a pleasure today to have Randy with us and in person, so that's even more interesting. I will briefly read his bio. Some of you have already read it online. And I will then after let you to go with the presentation.
Sounds good.
So Dr. Randy Mellaerts holds a PhD in Bioscience, Engineering and Pharmaceutical Sciences, which is very interesting. Then after we can talk about your career path.
Yeah.
He brings more than 15 years of professional experience in facilitating complex, multiple stakeholder constellations with an eco-societal focus. As a consultant and system practitioner, he is engaged with government, non-profit organizations, and international companies on global ecosystemic health challenges. Randy is also a social entrepreneur and founder of Parki's Cook Atelier and the Impact Licensing Initiative, the latter aiming to bridge technology with societal value creation. He also coaches individuals and communities of practice with the explicit goal of fostering environments conducive to learning and human flourishing. Randy's commitment lies in the pursuit of the common good, consistently integrating the human experience and the biological foundation of our existence into his endeavors. Driven by inherent curiosity, he remains a researcher at heart, focusing on exploring systemic and conscious energetic patterns at both collective and individual levels. His areas of personal interest into this exploration include cycling, martial arts, and regenerative communities. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jermina.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. I know it is good weather, so we're en petit comité, as they say. But I'm really glad, Jermina, that you did a bit the introduction, because the title is somewhat connected from cells to society, that I'm always struggling when people ask me, what do you do in life? And then I start struggling and I really can't explain it. Sometimes I say I'm a social entrepreneur, sometimes I say I'm a systems practitioner, but that's just a part of the puzzle. So today expect a kind of an amalgam, a kind of a combination of stories, insights, and not so fact-checked facts, perhaps. And then from life to living, I've been really intrigued by the question that Schrödinger asked himself, what is life? But I figured out over the years that it's perhaps better to look for pointers outside the question and not to stay inside this question of what is life. Okay, before we start, I want to share with you two stories. One is about this painting. We lived a couple of years ago in the south of France, and there I picked up karate again after a long period of inactivity. And when we left for Switzerland, my karate sensei gave me this painting, and he said, this is about a process of integration. It's about an integrated person that lives from the center and does not split up under pressure. You know, those karate senseis always say strange things. But I wanted to share this with you. And then the second thing that I want to share is a kind of a fantasy that I had as a little kid. When each time that I saw a ladybug, I simply knew that there was a whole universe inside the ladybug. And I was fantasizing about those little planets that were spinning around in the ladybug. And when I looked up to the sky, I realized, some little kid outside is also watching us because we are also in a ladybug. And those two things, the painting is something, that is an interaction. The ladybug is something like a story that's bubbled up intuitively. But to me, both of them are like affordances to explore the living and also the living process and the carrying forward of life. And because they're non-premediated, I was thinking, because, I think the education that you're in is like design management. Is living actually non-design then? Big question mark. We can elaborate on that in the Q&A perhaps. Okay, I will give a short introduction, more biological or bio-unlogical introduction, and then I will give a couple of examples of my professional career. So let's start with, at the very small scale, at the cell level. And cells are often referred to as the engines of life. Yeah, they're also the units of life. It's also a very small form of organization. Yeah, if you think about, for example, a systems thinker like Stafford Beer, he has this viable systems model that is used in organization management. So yeah, you can imagine that cells are a true inspiration for organization design. And in cell biology, in the history of cell biology, you actually have two competing models. Yeah? You have the membrane theory and you have the protoplasm theory. And the membrane theory is quite simple. A cell is like an aqueous solution of ions that is enclosed by a membrane, and then you have membrane pumps who are pumping the good things in and the bad stuff out. Yeah? The protoplasm theory is something completely different, and there it states that the cell is a cell because the water inside the cell is structured. Yeah? So it is not liquid water, it is like a liquid crystalline state. And due to the flip-flopping between liquid crystalline states, you get this energy production. Yeah? This was a theory that was very popular in, let's say, the late 19th century, but then they explained it a bit differently. They said, there must be some kind of an Urstoff or some kind of a vital force flowing through the cells. But it got a kind of a revival in the mid-20th century when they made a lot of progress in sol gel chemistry. Yeah? And then they started to explain this with this flip-flopping between liquid crystalline states and the structuring of water. But by the mid-20th century, biology had already split off from chemistry. So sometimes I walk around in a hospital and I think, what if biology would have been closer connected to chemistry? How would this healthcare system look like instead of using this membrane model that is a highly compartmentalized form of organization. So you feel that there is a clear dependency between structure and energy. Yeah? This is more energy less demanding, and the membrane theory with all the membrane pumps is very energy demanding, of course. So you can make a parallel with organizations and say, but what is the kind of organizational principle here? Yeah? This is more like an inner structuring principle for organization, and the membrane theory is more a compartmentalization. Yeah? So it's really inspiring to think about organizations from, let's say, the biological lens or the lens of cell biology. And then last but not least, what is the role of water? Yeah? It's often viewed as a kind of a background, but if I take this quote of Albert Szent-Györgyi. He got the Nobel Prize for the isolation of vitamin C. He was a very famous biochemist. He also wrote this little book, The Crazy Ape, on the history of humankind during the Cold War. And he explicitly said, life is water dancing to the tune of solids. Yeah? So what I want you to take from this slide is really that structure and energy are interdependent. Yeah? And I got really interested in this topic because I was doing my PhD on silica materials. So silica is a type of sand, but if you zoom in to those materials at the microscopic scale, you see that they have a kind of a honeycomb structure, and they look like microscopic sponges with really narrow pores, and they have a big surface area. And they show a lot of potential in pharmaceutical applications, because these days when molecules are developed in pharmaceutical research, they often display a very low solubility. So this means that if you would take a pill, it simply comes out and you flush it through the toilet. So what we did, we loaded those pharmaceuticals onto those materials in a highly dispersed form. And then when you take it, due to competitive desorption with the water, the molecules come out and you beat the unfavorable thermodynamics with speed and with the fast kinetics of those materials. Yeah. So the silicon materials that I was studying was a kind of a platform, a new platform as a drug delivery system. Yeah, we were studying it with quite some different techniques, with confocal fluorescence microscopy or electron spin resonance to really focus on the physicochemicals behind this mechanism. And it was always a kind of each technique revealed a little piece of the puzzle of this whole mechanics. Yeah, so it was a kind of kind of composing the puzzle, yeah, with all different kinds of techniques. And yeah, to me, I learned there that researching is a kind of a probing into the unknown. Yeah? And what was really interesting is that, of course, you come, because this is hard sciences, you come to these conclusions also because, yeah, we were using the techniques that were available in the lab. I was using specific techniques because my principal investigator had a good connection with another university. Yeah. I came to certain conclusions because I did certain experiments, because I had a nice interaction with one of my master students, for example. And because of that discussion, we set up another experiment, for example. So even this hard scientific research is really embedded in social structures, and research as such is interaction. Now they would call this type of research interdisciplinary research, because we were combining chemistry with biology, with engineering, with pharmaceutical sciences. And this is really intriguing, because language plays a very important role in all of this. For example, a simple word like amorphous means something completely different for a pharmaceutical scientist than for an engineer. So playing around with language, but it was actually big fun. And life and this fun, it happens at the interfaces. But once you get a taste of this, you always want to push a little bit further, and you want to include aspects like social sciences, behavioral psychology, and so on and so forth. So at a certain point, I felt that I got really stuck in my academic career, and I felt like stuck in the triangle of the painting of Newton, the painting of William Blake Newton. So I felt quite stuck in this triangle, and at the same time I was doing quite a lot of stuff that people described as a hobby, but to me they were very nurturing. I was a competitive cyclist. I was into dancing, martial arts, doing emotional bodywork, Reich therapy, for example. And to me, this was also research. But my colleague said this is no research because there was a complete epistemological split. This is more positivism that I was doing inside the triangle, and this can be viewed as experimental phenomenology. But to me, there is something very generic. And you will see in the examples that I will give, this genericity comes always back. And to me, this is a kind of a playing around with the interdependence between energy and structure, at the cellular level. And here, I was doing it through my own experience and physical process. I always like those scribbles on a peer mat, because I don't think you need more theory than that. So how I view things is like, in the examples that I will give, it's always a kind of a temporal guidance or a shepherding of an energy structure relationship and the interactions in that specific part. So it's like shepherding what I call a hole in the whole, whether it is at the molecular level, at the level of your own physical spirituality or in der Weltsein, or it is in interaction with colleagues, in organizations as a human activity system, or it is in society, or it is in an ecosystem. So it's always this kind of an energy structure, and finding the aesthetics to hone in on a certain guidance that you want to provide, and that requires often triangulation. So to me, it seemed like a big split between experimental phenomenology and positivism, but it's actually the same. quite often it happened that I had a dream, and then the day after I was cycling, I was recalling this dream, I was building on that, and I got some inspiration that changed the dialogue that I had with a master student or with the principal investigator. It changed again what type of experiment that I was doing. So it was a whole big hairy mess. So perhaps if I would describe myself, it would be more a caretaker of the hole in the whole. Yeah? And when I say that to people, then I typically get the feedback, can you make that more concrete? That's always the same. So this is why I will also give you some examples. The first example that I want to give is Parki's cook atelier. It started with a very personal connection. Because my mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at a very young age, approximately 40 years old. And we played around with nutrition and lifestyle. We had some really nice results. And at one meeting of the Flemish Parkinson's Disease Association, I met Yves. And Yves used to be a chef cook and also suffering from Parkinson's. And we were talking to each other and saying, research on Parkinson's disease and nutrition is really underfunded. Probably because you cannot take intellectual property on an apple or a banana. And at the same time, you see that billions go to research, but people, and the golden standard in Parkinson's disease treatment is still levodopa. It's a medication that they already use from the 50s. Can you imagine? So you have a lot of spending in research, and still they use a drug used in the 50s. So where does all this money go to? So we said nutrition is like a big, and I don't want to sound mechanistically here, but it is indeed a very big lever to change the quality of life of people with Parkinson's. At all different stages of the disease, prior pharmacotherapy, you have foods that have neuroprotective effects. Little is known, but they say that the Mediterranean diet is really neuroprotective, and that unfermented milk products are positively associated with the incidence of Parkinson's disease. During pharmacotherapy, you have certain foods that interact with the medication that people with Parkinson's take, because the amino acids from the proteins compete to go through the blood-brain barrier, and they compete with this medication, so you can tweak a little bit with it. And then at the more palliative stages, people suffer a lot from sarcopenia, loss of muscle mass, and so on and so forth, so you need to focus on providing nutrient-dense meals with an adapted consistency. So it's nutrition is very complex in the sense that every time, and that's the pitfall of reductionism, if you say, for example, look to fiber. And you say, okay, what would the advice be for people with Parkinson's disease? Should they eat more or less fiber? And in some patients, it would help because constipation is a common side effect of Parkinson's disease. But a lot of those patients also suffer from SIBO. It's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if you then feed fiber, then your symptoms flare up dramatically. The same with this low protein diet and low protein redistribution diet. Some patients seem to be a responder, other not. And of course, you can get some complications if you say, I will decrease my protein intake. Think of sarcopenia in the long run. So how did we step into designing this atelier then? Just a couple of principles. We wanted to focus on relationships and creating learning opportunities. Okay, so this is how we positioned Parki's Cook Atelier in the beginning. So we positioned it as an integrator, a living lab, but an integrator between all the knowledge that was present in the professional community. And we linked it up with persons with Parkinson's, but also their caregivers and the whole care team. And at the same time, those ateliers were like a platform for interaction with the professional community. So we organized quite a lot of ateliers. Some of them were really hands-on, informal. The other ones were more ex cathedra. We also did some ateliers with yeah, cooking schools in nursing homes, for example. We also wrote a couple of cooking guides, for people with swallowing and chewing difficulties. And on top of that, we try to connect it with the scientific community. So we started supervising, first at the bachelor level, but then master level and then PhD level, different types of research, around gut microbiota, for example, or the dietary intake of Parkinson's disease patients. To me, this whole atelier showed that it was possible to create quite some momentum outside the established structures and to change something. Because when I was in academia, I was trying to figure a way to do some research on Parkinson's disease. But okay, I was a bioscience engineer. So everyone was saying, what is this guy telling here? So by stepping out and starting an atelier, a non-profit atelier, outside these structures, we really created some momentum. And at the end, we could achieve what we wanted from the beginning. So we built bridges and moved beyond science. Did it come to its full potential? No, because there was still a lot of feedback blindness. I still remember one lady talking about her hormone treatment for postmenopausal problems. And she said, each time that I take those hormones, my Parkinson's disease symptoms flare up dramatically. Someone else said, each time I go on a ski holiday and we are at 2,000 meters height, my symptoms of Parkinson's disease almost disappear. And when you say those things, to me as a researcher, they are extremely interesting. I want to follow that curiosity. But when you say that to a neurologist, then it is, Parkinson's disease is not so good understood, and it's probably something that is psychosomatic. Okay, then it's boxed, and they show you the way out. So there was still a lot of potential that was unused here and that was not manifested. Second example that I want to give, something completely different. It is a non-commercial pharmaceutical development in which we developed a contraceptive medical device so that women can use, young women in sub-Saharan Africa, self-inject those microneedles, and then you would be protected for 3 months. It should be used in a very discreet way, with very minimal side effects. So this was a very complex public-private partnership with academic institutes, but also industrial partners, design companies as well. And to provide a little bit more context, this was funded by the Gates Foundation, and the Gates Foundation has this, back in those days, a kind of a Darwinian principle. So they fund like 3 or 4 public-private partnerships, and then they see, okay, which one moves best, and then if they reach that milestone, then you get extra funding. So it's a kind of a Darwinian principle, and perhaps that's designed for life, but I'm not so sure about that. So what the team faced was really, in this complexity, we always had to take decisions, and it was always a kind of a trade-off between moving as fast as we can to a prototype with in vivo functionality, and at the same time keeping the design space open. And that was a kind of a trade-off in decision-making that we always had to do. So how did we deal with it? We said, okay, let's ditch the typical management where we are behind MS project sheets and you see a lot of milestones and things and everyone gets really confused about it. So let's move to caretaking and cultivate self-organization. And this is what we did with, again, a very easy graphic that you can put on a beer map. And we said, okay, just do the stuff that you're good in and focus on the feedbacks that you need, because this is a design, and this is a kind of an emergent process, that you need to take into account feedback coming from people dealing with manufacturing, because it has to be in the longer run produced at a very low cost of goods, little environmental impact. It has to show that it works in animal models, so preclinical efficacy and safety is important. And at the same time, yeah, you constantly have to probe into the context, yeah. And yeah, normally this in vivo and first in human studies would be placed here in a consecutive order. But to keep this design space open, we already did some human-centric design experiments and worked with a dummy prototype in sub-Saharan Africa to really get feedback from the end users as well. And on top of that, you're also working against a strict regulatory framework. Yeah, so you have to take into account quite a lot of feedback, but it helped with facilitating the conversations in the team. And it's also a kind of a coupling if you put different organizations together, that they can work from their own center and just be coupled in an energetic way. So it is a kind of an internal ordering principle that you have. Yeah, so it resonates a lot with the protoplasm theory that I was explaining in the beginning, and it has less to do with the membrane theory, because that would be much more energy demanding. Yeah. So what we did was actually create, and I call this a kind of a capacity for proprioception at the team level, so that every team member knows what the other ones are doing approximately and what they need from another. Yeah. We coupled these intrinsic energies, and then also important is that, yeah, you make sure that this public-private partnership has a kind of a solid heartbeat, with regular meeting times that are fun to attend, that you go on an on-site retreat, yeah, every 6 months, for example, to make the mayonnaise from the ingredients. Yeah, that's really important. And while I was facilitating this partnership, I was also giving some workshops at the University of Freiburg around systems thinking. And I had one student from Nigeria, and he said to me, whatever you do, we don't trust anything that comes from the Gates Foundation. Yeah. So that's important to remember when we go to the next example, and that is the Impact Licensing Initiative. So the Impact Licensing Initiative, we started working on it in 2017, and we founded it in 2019. And it started from the observation that a lot of social innovation is really service-oriented, but that technologies in social innovation are completely underused. Yeah? It has to do with power dynamics and intellectual property and how value is extracted from a society and geared towards shareholder value, and not so much for societal value and not for the common good. So this is what we want to change with the Impact Licensing Initiative. And impact licensing, yeah, 2 words. So impact, you predetermine kind of a common good that you collectively articulate, and licensing, to say it simple, it's making the connection with the nitty-gritty of the economic and the legal reality these days. Yeah? And what we want to do is position technologies, yeah, and foster their catalytic potential to create flourishing societies and a flourishing community, and not the other way around. So in that sense, we're really trying to find a middle way between, and I'm simplifying here, between the technocrats who say, we will solve everything with technology. It's like a monstrous machine that keeps on going. And on the other hand, you have the systems thinkers who say, yeah, everything needs to be regenerative. Dialogue is the Valhalla and stuff like that. But they simply sometimes don't come to manifestation, yeah, because they miss the negotiation cloud. So what we want to do is really integrate the nitty-gritty of the economic and the legal reality as well. And work in that relationship. Okay, let me give you an example. So we obtained a license from a Belgian company, and they developed a very innovative technology on cold chain. What we developed was a last mile cold chain delivery technology. Yeah. And because we are working with a lot of organizations and research institutes as well on the field, yeah, in those local contexts, we easily get feedback. And one of the feedbacks was that there were a lot of small dairy farm holders, yeah, and they milk their cows like twice a day. And they said, yeah, where we actually can use this passive cold chain technology is that you find a way to cool our evening milk, because if we go to the collectors, yeah, then it will not be refused anymore because it is stored at a cool temperature. So it generates an extra income for us. So then we put it back to the design table. And the product designers developed those orbs that can be put into a milk can with the technology inside for passive cold chain. Yeah. So that's one example how this context and this feedback allows to pace technology development with the development of a community, and that you find a kind of a synchronicity between those two evolutions. Yeah. Another example is a hydrogen panel. And this panel, that's really revolutionary. It was developed by the University of Leuven in Belgium. So it makes hydrogen out of air and sunlight. Yeah. And people in the local context, they said, yeah, we do not need this for energy, but what is a big need in our communities is actually clean cooking. Yeah. So we are now exploring with, and this was recently developed, a kind of a cooking fire that works on low pressure hydrogen. And at the same time, yeah, you had to store this. So we are working with these low-tech hydrogen bags and now exploring how these can be transported and stuff like that, and how to put in an integrated business model together that works, yeah, for everyone there, but also attracts certain type of investments, yeah, from philanthropic to impact investments and so on and so forth. Yeah, so it's a completely different logic and approach. And what I also want to say is that, yeah, we still phrase it as the impact licensing initiative. And these days, I get a lot of comments from colleagues. Yeah, you're still working around impact, and it's so old-fashioned because you know what you're going to do, and you have to be open for emergence. But at the same time, yeah, it's really digging into those current power dynamics that you have in the economic system. And if you embed this striving for impact in a collaborative learning, then you're really changing something without excluding, let's say, the bad capitalism. Yeah, but it's not easy, also for myself, because I'm not an Enlightenment thinker. I'm more a romanticist, so it's so it's a bit difficult sometimes. Yeah. So what we do is embedding technology for the common good, and especially making it work within the current economic and legal reality. Fourth example, very quickly, this was, okay, shifting gears again in your head. It was an assignment for the King Baudouin Foundation, who said we are a very small player in cancer research, yeah, but we want to play the role as an actor of change and a convener. Yeah. Can you set up a multi-stakeholder process where we can find out about the current situation in cancer research and perhaps create a joint vision? So we set up quite a disciplined process in 3 phases. The first phase was finding out. This was based on sound qualitative research, semi-structured interviews, and so on and so forth. The second phase was creating together with all the stakeholders around the table. So universities, pharmaceutical industry, people from Europe, patient organizations, Cancer Research UK, the Danish Cancer Society, and so on and so forth. This vision. And then the third step was to bridge the situation as is with the shared vision into a set of recommendations. Yeah. This whole approach was rooted in soft systems methodology, so not hard systems dynamics, but more soft systems approaches. Think Peter Checkland's. And we used systems mapping as a kind of a boundary object to bring the political discussion that typically goes from, the problem is from A to B, and someone else says, no, it's from C to D, and they keep on, and it's difficult to find like a common ground. Yeah. So what we did, we mapped all the conversations into a systems map, and that revealed a kind of dynamic that the current cancer research system it creates a lot of patient value, but it still leads to suboptimal patient value. And this is the cartoonesque version that we presented, but below that you see 90 to 100 drivers that directly lead to suboptimal patient value or indirectly lead to suboptimal patient value. Yeah. So it ranges from institutional fragmentation, challenges in non-commercial research, in clinical trials also, the monopoly of the pharmaceutical industry, the difficulties of communication with patients, the lack of involvement. And so this is not an objective representation, but it is a kind of a social construct, yeah, that allows for discussion and dialogue. So we use this as a step up to construct our vision, and I will not go into the details, but it's a different type of systems map. So the first one was based on a causal syntax and a causal logic, and this vision is an activity model. So it is a representation of a highly performant cancer research system. Yeah, it's a combination of activities that make sure that the whole cancer research system is generating as much patient value as it can, and at the same time, yeah, and that's the core module, it's constantly questioning what is patient value in an evolving societal context. So it is conceptualized as a learning system. Yeah, and based on the situation as is and the aspirational situation, the situation to be, we came up with several recommendations. Some of them were ranging more, were more at the operational level. Some of them were more at the structural level, and some of them were more at the cultural level. So it was a very disciplined process, and it allowed, to see the whole and to stretch everyone that was involved, to a somewhat broader perimeter of understanding of cancer research in Belgium, but especially in Europe. And then, of course, the question came back to our client, the King Baudouin Foundation. How do we deal with this information strategically? So then they opted to focus on the core module of the vision, focus on patient value, and build a transdisciplinary research nucleus that focuses on patient value in cancer research. And for that, we launched a call. And we invited quite a lot of scientists, young scientists that were interested in taking part of this small transdisciplinary team. Yeah. At the end, 10 were selected, and now this whole thing is rebranded to the Symphony of Us. Yeah, that's the first nucleus of this transdisciplinary team. But we had first it would have been better been a base camp, but we called it a boot camp. And we had a boot camp with those 10 researchers, a whole weekend at a very nice location in Belgium. It was a castle in midst of nature. And we played around with value at all different levels. Value in life. We did walks that were connected with appreciative inquiry. We had a creative evening where they could make their own manifesto with materials. Then we zoomed out again to the multi-stakeholder dialogue that we had. They were able to do some constellation work and say, this is where I want to contribute, here I feel uncomfortable, and so on and so forth. So this allowed the King Baudouin Foundation to focus on, we want to really contribute to a cultural change in cancer research, and we will do it through fostering transdisciplinary research. Yeah? And the nucleus that is now being built in Belgium is the first nucleus, but you can scale it up, of course, by starting those nuclei in different kinds of countries and then make a kind of a network. But that's something for the future. Okay, then the fifth example. Very quickly, I'm supporting a social organization in Belgium, and they're helping young people, young families with difficulties. So they're providing shelter. And what they face, and this is really a reductionist view, they see that although they're offering more and more places and spaces in time, the need for those places is really growing. Yeah? And they say, we cannot keep up with this, and we don't want to run constantly behind these metrics. Yeah? And at the same time, we feel that there is so much potential in society. Let's do something else, and can you help us with developing a research approach that would help us. So they bought a couple of old school buildings in a city in Belgium, and we are actually now, I don't know whether this is correct English, sorry for my Europa English, but they're trying to midwifing the potential out of society into a regenerative space, yeah? And the approach is based on a triangulation, yeah? It's a constant, sense-making, so meta-reflection. At the same time, there is a lot of field work going on. They're doing foresight exercises with the local students. They're going for a walk, for example, in the city. They have some nice conversations, opening a book. Yeah, then just at random, trying to make the link between what is happening in the city in Tienen with the page that they're reading. So it's a combination of qualitative work based on more constructivist approaches and experimental phenomenology. At the same time, because it needs manifestation potential, they're constantly honing in on certain artifacts. And the first artifact that they are making is designing one room inside these school buildings that will have a kind of a crystallization of all the discussions that they had with nice pictures and so on and so forth. Also with a wall with a hole in it that you can look through to the future of the city in Belgium. And this is like a first artifact that can be used again to facilitate dialogue in a completely different way, and then hone in again on other artifacts. Yeah? So it's a soft approach based on triangulation. Now, because I'm in Belgium, there is a colleague of me who is facilitating all this, and she's really not a researcher, but she's more like a spider woman, continuously changing her research position. If she talks to a politician, it can be based on a semi-structured interview, for example, yeah, and we can get a lot out of it. She constantly keeps this double paradigm of the needs that they have. And sometimes you have to talk in such a language. You have needs and you need to solve it with the policymakers. But also keeping in suspension this paradigm of emergence. Yeah? So it's balancing somewhere in between. Yeah? And at the same time, it's also getting a feel of the natural rhythms that unfold in such a process. Yeah? At a certain point, you will feel that now we are at the point of data saturation. We have to hone in on a specific artifact. Okay, so 5 examples. I typically don't like conclusions or advice at the end, but I would like the ladybug to say a couple of things. The first thing is, and it's really not a conclusion, it's I don't even know what it is, detectiving your way into the energy of the whole in the whole. Living outside what is living, without theory, revealing aesthetic golden ratioing inside of us. Noticing our dance move after its completion, not worrying about transformation. Yeah? And then my final disclaimer is, please forget everything what I said, and come to your own conclusions.
Thank you.
More than welcome.
If we have questions for the people that are online, please write them on the Q&A because the chat is not active. And if we have questions here with the people that are in the classroom, please go ahead. I can see Carol.
Thanks so much for this. I really enjoyed the scope of the 5 projects. The things they have in common is, first one is listen to your patients. Second one is focus on feedback. Listen to feedback on the third one. Patients are co-researchers. Dialogue. I think in all design projects, projects we worked on, I'm working on in a very similar way. Is the fundamental, the basic principle is listen to the people you work with and listen to the people you work for. which is immediately a very, it's 2 points there, a very critical view of what's happening in practice in the medical world and pharmaceutical world, where they don't patients, where they don't listen to situations, where they don't observe. So that's point one. How can we actually ensure that the people we work with in this, how can we listen to students within the university structure? How can we listen to patients in the pharmaceutical industry? How can we listen to citizens in your last project for making safe spaces? The second thing, when we do that, when we listen to patients, they are co-researchers, you said. Do we need to pay them? Because they're absolutely fundamental. We don't pay them. We don't give them any reward apart from talking about value. But thank you very much, and then we go move on. We don't give them any real tangible reward for the co-creation they're involved in. How do you deal with them?
Yeah, and at the same time, yeah, it's even more complex because the label patients, yeah, we're all citizens and humans, and to a certain extent, we're all patients. So going into a kind of a therapeutic labeling, like you have Parkinson's disease, you have cancer, and so on and so forth, perhaps we should dig a little bit deeper. What is the commonality in our shared humanity here? And then you come, yeah, perhaps to completely other forms of organization, also at a societal level, yeah, because now, yeah, even, yeah, you almost need to brand yourself as a kind of an expert to make a living. Yeah, this sounds so absurd, yeah. The same is, yeah, now you have this tendency to train patient experts. Yeah, and then they really use this label as a kind of value extraction mechanism as well. Yeah, because patient experts, yeah, get paid really well by pharmaceutical industry, but also by research institutes and so on and so forth. So going that completely into that direction, that we have to pay people for that, yeah, it is also embedded in a complex societal reality of these days. So I'm not going to offer you a solution here, because then I would violate my own principles. But it's good to question those things. Yeah. And
so a healthy person is a patient who has not been investigated properly yet. And that's exactly what you. So
yeah.
A healthy person is a patient who has not been investigated properly yet.
Yeah, and that's also, yeah, a kind of a cult of that these days, becoming more healthy. It's a whole business, and you see pharmaceutical industry completely shifting to early diagnostics, early detection, and so on and so forth, to have this interception very early, and to have a very long life that you can be supported in some way or another, to say it in a euphemistic way. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions? No? For the people that are online, do you have questions? If you have, please write them on the Q&A. In the meanwhile, we have talked before about language, and now we were talking about labels. And unfortunately, still today, when students move to an organization, they will be still thinking the word customer, right? So we label a human being as someone that have buying access. That's the label. And at the same time, when you work with a systemic lens, we need to understand, hopefully, that's great, trans-contextual aspects of this person. Right? But more labels we have, if we put the customer, the patient, the student, the citizen, the more we separate this context, and the less difficult, or the more difficult it is to see the person. and that person in this context. So do you have any recommendation for, particularly for the students, about how we understand people in context without labeling?
Yeah, it's quite a big question in the sense that yeah, if I go back to the base camp or the boot camp that we organized, it's a completely different way of seeing people as well. So when we launched the call together with the King Baudouin Foundation, we said we want to have persons that are present as whole persons. Yeah, just not with the mask of, I'm a good pharmaceutical scientist or I'm a social scientist. No, come as your whole self. And then throughout this weekend, we saw that there was a kind of a spirit emerging, like a web of relations. Yeah, but we are all egoic ends of the relation. And that makes it sometimes even difficult for us to digest, to be really a part of a relationship, because you tend to lose your own identity. I was facilitating this base camp together with a colleague. And at the end, we realized it was not me that was facilitating, not him, but it was our relationship, because we were so different. And how to move to something like that, I think it's a big challenge. Yeah, if you look to job postings, for example, it's still typical. You have that position, this instrumentalization of skills, and so on and so forth. But it is devoid of the spirit of who you are as a human being. Yeah, it's like the split that I was in when doing my hard scientific research, and at the same time being a competitive cyclist and doing my own research on an experimental phenomenological way. Why couldn't this be integrated? Why did I have to leave academics? It's because of a clash of epistemologies. So new approaches and new experiments that can grow little by little are really important. And at the same time, try to connect it with the current system so that it is not too isolated. What we are doing with the impact licensing initiative, we also listen to what people have to say and their feedback, and we couple it with legal contracts, legal structures, with the economic reality. So having those little experiments that come then together hopefully move us in a very good direction, and that we can work for the common good.
Yes, we do have a question. Super. Stein asks, I was surprised that you use the Darwinistic label as an example of the survival of the fittest. I assume with your Gates Foundation example, should it not be the best fit in?
A lot of things. I'm not sure whether I understand his question exactly.
Allowed to talk. Stein, I think that you can talk and we can hear you. Will you form?
I'm free.
Okay.
No, I was just surprised with your background. You know, we always explain Darwin as just the survival of the fittest, but it's not the case. You know, if you read stuff that Darwin wrote, it's all about the best fit in. You know, best fits into their environment and the ecosystems. So that's why I was surprised that here that you used the Darwinistic example as a little bit of the fittest and not the best fit in.
Really good point, and I said it also half jokingly, because I know that Darwin is often very misinterpreted. But this is often the case when people say, we're designing for life, and then they say, Darwin, they interpret it in a certain way, and then they say, look, we are designing for nature, we are designing for life. So having these kind of interpretations is really a big pitfall. The same with systemic language, for example. Now I see tobacco companies reporting on the Sustainable Development Goals. And that will happen as well with all the language around regeneration. It will be hijacked as soon as they can by the forces of dynamic conservatism. So what do you do with that? It's a kind of a manifestation that is present. And it's difficult.
I'm worried about this. This is already been done. I mean, I share
absolutely.
your concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stein.
You use the word conservative.
Yeah.
Where did you get that from?
Yeah, not sure where I heard it from.
About in 1971. It's only decent resource I've ever found about the active strategy of organizations to stay the same. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, if you look to the Three Horizons framework, for example, yeah, you have some new initiatives, etc., and either they come to fruition into a certain context, but often they're simply taken up. Yeah, if I look to Parki's Cook Atelier, the example that I gave in the beginning, it had a very nice, and it still has a very nice spirit inside of it, but now you see that the scientific research is kind of taken up by the universities in a certain way to get their KPIs and to publish articles and stuff like that. And then you see that the spirit, they still use the same words that we were using in Parki's Cook Atelier, but the spirit is completely devoid of what they're doing. And this is why language is often not, it's so incomplete. Sometimes I want to dance a little bit to explain what I mean, but yeah, I cannot do this here.
Thanks. No, thank you for that.
Questions? No? To the new people in practice? With fresh eyes? No? Are you sure? No? Okay, I can keep on asking questions, no problem. No? Marcus said no? Yes? I am on time. That's what you want me to say, that I need to close. Okay, good. So we close, and after we close, and I ask him the question. Thank you very much to the people that are online. Thank you very much, Randy, for sharing your experience. It's fantastic. And thank you very much for the ones that came with trains or stay. Much appreciated. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.